It's a great day for reading and making a few changes. Hello, and welcome to Checked Out. We're broadcasting from Euclid Public Library in beautiful Euclid, Ohio. I'm Jean Robinson, Multimedia and Communications Specialist.
And I'm Mike Stein, Assistant Manager of Adult Services. We talk about our favorite books, movies, services, and events with our favorite people and our favorite community. Each podcast will feature a theme. Today, we're talking about the library's upcoming renovation and relocation. Our special guests are Ben Crabtree from Bialosky. He's our Associate Principal and Design Director. John Guzik, Bialosky's Senior Associate and Director of Sustainability. And Kacie Armstrong, former Checked Out co-host and still Euclid Public Library Director. Welcome to Checked Out.
Glad to be here.
Thank you, Mike and Jean.
So Kacie, now you're on the other end of we're asking questions, so we'll throw the first one out to you and just get right into the meat of the matter. Why is the renovation of the library needed?
Thank you, Mike, for that question. When I started some 11 years ago, I started with a $1 million renovation. At the time, that renovation was more surface level issues like updating the carpeting, adding some new computers, painting the walls, those kind of things. Unfortunately, the last major renovation that Euclid Public Library had was back in the mid-90s. And so it's hard to believe that it's been 30 years since the last major renovation of Euclid Public Library. And this will be our sixth renovation. But we need the renovation because of all of our aging systems. The roof needs to be replaced. The HVAC system needs to be replaced. The sewer pipes need to be replaced. So really, it's just the renovation is just really bare bones practical. But in fixing those systems that need to be replaced, we also get to do some fun things like add a children's interactive play space and a business resource center.
Now, Ben and John, what factors do you consider when renovating a library?
As Kacie mentioned, the Euclid Public Library had its last major renovation 30 years ago. And the kinds of services that public libraries provide to their communities are just drastically different than they were 30 years ago. The changes in technology, the changes in the needs that people have is very, very different. And libraries are great gap fillers, and they kind of take on those needs. The library's needs for its spaces change with those kind of service changes that they've had. So what we see and what we are considering when we're thinking about how we're going to change the library's space, because we're in there fixing all of these aging systems at the same time, is how are we reconfiguring to make spaces that allow people to gather more, to allow people better access to technology, to give people more meeting space, and to create kind of active learning spaces for our younger patrons. Places that kind of draw them into the library to kind of engage with them and kind of foster that desire for reading and learning that the library supports so well.
Yeah, I'll add on to that. What Ben touched on is a lot of the programming, what we refer to as programming, which are really the services offered by the library and how those have changed. My role on the project as project manager is to keep those kinds of things in mind, but also to be looking at the actual bones of the building, the ceiling heights that are based on the structures. And because this building has been renovated and added on to so many times, it's a pretty complex set of structural components and mechanical and plumbing and electrical as well, and really looking at what we can do internal to the library while still leaving those existing major components, the masonry walls and the steel beams and such in place. It is restrictive in some senses where, maybe we can't make a ceiling quite as tall as we'd like to because those existing beams are still there. But it also gives us a lot of inspiration for how we go about manipulating the space and providing new, spaces for both the staff and the public who use the library.
Well, I work out on the reference desk quite a bit, and people are always coming up asking questions about everything. And they quite often even well before this renovation process, say how beautiful this library is and why do you need to change it? And I tell them it's mostly the reasons behind it are the things that you don't see, the roof, carpeting, HVAC system. We get leaks, and then while we're doing all that, why not try to update the library? So Kacie, maybe you can tell us the things that people will see that will be changed that you're most excited about.
Well, the entire interior of the building will look different. So currently, and thanks to Jean, she has been sharing some historical pictures of the library, and she's been taking some before shots and video of what the current building looks like. But when we return to the renovated building in 2026, from the moment you enter the facility, it will look different. There'll be new carpeting, new paint. The children's department will no longer be at the front of the library, but towards what we consider the rear of the library, or close to East 222nd Street. The teen department will be in a new place. The computers will be up front as opposed to in the rear of the library. Everything will look completely different. So not only a different layout, but just a completely different look. So we are excited because just at our last meeting with Bialosky, we got to go downtown on Carnegie to the main offices for Bialosky and actually start to pick out the paint color and the carpeting and all those other features that the public will see in a renovated building. And maybe John or Ben can tell me, how long has Bialosky Cleveland been around?
Ooh, I should know that off the top of my head.
I'm going to say 75.
Yeah, I think we just celebrated the 70th anniversary a couple of years ago. So it was started as
I was asking because I felt as if our library was close in age to Bialosky.
Well, and we've relocated over the years and are in the location that you just referenced on Carnegie in a great space that is full of daylight, just like your library is, and there are a lot of parallels for how we consider space and work with people.
Well, kind of aside, what's the oldest building you guys have worked on or built in the 75 years of, not you personally, but Bialosky in their history? What's the oldest building they renovated or?
So I know, John, you may have a better one, but I know that currently on the books, kind of the oldest building we have in the office right now is working on the Masonic Temple here in Midtown Cleveland. That building is over 100 years old. And we've been renovating it to include new mechanical systems, to update that to allow it to kind of serve a wider variety of it's still a concert venue to kind of continue to serve that purpose in the warmer months, which it hasn't been able to previously. We actually studied adding a hotel and conference center to that historic building, which is something that we may see in the future.
Can you tell us a bit about what colors will be used?
Part of the reason that Euclid Public Library chose Bialosky as our architects is because their history in this community. They really have a great appreciation for not only the city of Euclid, but just greater Cleveland overall. And when we told them in some of our very initial meetings that the city of Euclid was known as the city on the lake, they are the lakefront city. They really began to incorporate the colors of Lake Erie, the colors of the sunset into our project. So I'm not going to ruin the surprise and tell you all what the colors are for the Euclid Public Library. You'll have to come to the grand opening to see that. But I do encourage you to go down to the Euclid Pier, spend some time looking at the beautiful colors of Lake Erie, spend some time during the sunsets, and you'll know exactly what colors our library will be.
So we have the architectural drawings here on display in the library. Kacie, what was your first reaction when you saw them? Did it give you everything that you wanted? Was there some things you're like, I don't know? What was your first reaction?
Mike, I have to admit, I was a little emotional when I saw the renderings. And I say that because as I noted that the last major renovation was done about 30 years ago. And my son just turned 30 in June. So I have so many great memories of bringing him to story time and my daughter and just using the library and watching them grow up using the Euclid Public Library. And so when I saw the renderings, I said, I was just pleasantly surprised at how beautiful and creative the Bialosky Cleveland team did with just the design. But I guess I'm a little bit nostalgic because I immediately thought, oh my God, they're going to be taking the stars down from the story time. And those stars were such a great part of my children's upbringing.
What other libraries have you renovated?
We got a number of them here in the Northeast Ohio area that we've finished up in the last few years. Really, we completed work on both of Shaker Public Library's branches, their main library and their Bertram Woods branch. We are working with Cleveland Public Library on renovating their Glenville branch and building a new Walls branch. We also worked with them on their facility master plan, which was kind of reimagining their entire 27 branch system and how they're going to pursue that. That's a really exciting project for the city as a whole because all of their branches are going to be renovated over the course of 10 years. We're also working with Westlake, Youngstown, Mahoning County. It's not a short list, so I can kind of pause there. But we really do love these library projects. So they're really fun, exciting projects to work on. We love that they are the most community-focused projects we could possibly find. So we always, when we complete them, we see the positive impact they're going to have immediately, and that's just really exciting for us and gratifying. So they're some of our favorite clients to work with.
Well, I said earlier how people are always coming up to me out on the reference desk and saying how beautiful they think the library is. And Ben, you just talked about your guys' work with libraries over the years. John, can you tell us what Bialosky's role in our renovation exactly is?
Well, it's a wide-ranging scope of services that has included kind of that early analysis stage. We had done a facility assessment report a couple of years back that helped identify what issues needed to be addressed. But then once we started on the proper work of really speaking with staff and Kacie and people like yourself who work in the library, as well as some of the users, we were able to analyze, as Ben had touched on earlier, what the current needs are. That's where we start. But then once we get into it and start developing those drawings and negotiating where space will be and what programs get how much space and what location within the library they need to be. We then move into what we refer to as design development, really creating initial plans and then coming up with the details and the finishes, like Kacie had mentioned, coming in and look at the carpet and the wall finishes and everything. We're also responsible for the mechanical and electrical engineering. We have that in-house. So we've got people on our team who look at all of those systems, in addition to consultants that we bring in for things like the civil engineering to adjust some work on the site, and technology engineers who look at the data needs for the library. So it's very wide ranging and pretty much touches every aspect of the building and the finishes that go inside of it.
And I know as someone that's been in a couple of meetings, it's not just, hey, we need a redesign on the library and you guys give it to us and that's that. It's a lot of back and forth. Do you know how many drafts of the floor plan or redesign that you guys have put forth so far?
Oh my goodness, we change something during every and in between every meeting. So individual versions are innumerable, beyond count. But I would say probably to the credit of the entire team, both the architects and engineers, as well as the library side of the table. I think we had a pretty good handle on that base floor plan pretty early on, because there was a lot of communication before we even started drawing, and I think, there's the saying that you need to know yourself, and I think the library has a pretty good handle on who they are and what they're trying to accomplish. And as Ben was alluding to, we've certainly done this before, so I think we hit on the basic core ideas pretty early.
Kacie, what would you like patrons to know about this process?
There are so many different pieces and parts of this, and I really do appreciate John and Ben for taking their time to come in and do this podcast with us today, because they truly have helped guide us through every single decision. It's so important to have excellent architects. So if you're a library, listen to this and you need an architect, I definitely say go with Bialosky. But I like to share just a couple of things that I never get to talk about the project. One is that coming up, Bialosky and Turner will be helping us to reach out to the Euclid School District to involve the buildings trade program that's at the Euclid High School. So we're looking forward to bringing some students once the renovation actually begins. Bringing them next door, letting them see a little bit of the process. So I'm very excited about that our young people will get some hands-on learning. And then the other piece that we just, it's like I said, it's so many details. But the piece that I'm finding the most fascinating is just the technology component. Mike, you mentioned the renderings that Bialosky, the actual physical print pieces that they've created. But they've also created this virtual walkthrough that has just been so incredibly helpful and really helped to bring the project to life for us. So I am so grateful. And I don't know, Ben or John, what is the name of that software? What is that?
We actually use two different softwares for that.
Okay.
I'm going to say we use three different softwares for that. We use a software called Revit to do all of the modeling. That's a building information modeling software. This is the kinds of drawings. So this is going to be a much more complicated answer than you were anticipating. The kinds of drawings and documents that we create there's a lot more to them than just lines on paper. We're building everything three-dimensionally, nearly everything three-dimensionally as we're designing the building and creating documents for it. The contractor will still receive kind of paper documents, but we have a full building model of the entire thing. And there's been then great strides in just the last 4 or 5 years in how easily we can transfer that model into something graphic to create renderings like the ones that you have on display, or kind of three-dimensional walkthroughs. There's a number of different ones that do it. We use one that's called Enscape early on that is less refined, but it has a really easy transfer between those two softwares. And then we use another one to create the renderings called Twinmotion. What's interesting about that is it's actually a video game software. It's the same software that they use to render.
Wait a minute. Did you say video game?
Yes. So Twinmotion, it uses the same rendering engine and the same software that they use to render the environments for video games. So when we do those walkthroughs, you are truly walking through a video game. It's really fun. It is something that a lot of work goes into those. We have to be careful not to let people think that we have a magic wand and we can just make that stuff show up immediately. I know that we kind of couched that early on that like these were going to get more and more refined as we went through, and that more and more information gets in there. But then it gets to a point where it does kind of show you a really great picture of what the building's going to be like. And this is something we've come along to. I know I was actually kind of the stodgy old guy for a while that really didn't like doing these walkthroughs too often because we saw too much of what we didn't want to see and we couldn't control it. And eventually we realized that we learned so much doing those walkthroughs with the owner, showing you guys what we see when we do that and allowing you to kind of picture things as they're going to be, to a degree that from a cost benefit standpoint, that it just made sense to do that as much as we could.
Well, I absolutely love it, and it's been such a help. I am such a visual learner, and to be able to actually see the desk, see the closet, see the the meeting rooms and all the different spaces, it's just been such a fascinating part of this process.
We've kind of buried the lead here, I think, because I'm sure there might be some people listening that this is news to them. The library will be moving to a temporary location in the next couple months. We'll be renovating the current location probably over the course of a year, next year. And the new location is the old Rite Aid on East 185th, right across from Bialosky St. Joseph High School. We're calling it EPL at 185th. So that's our plans over the next year and a half. Kacie, what can you tell us more about the relocation plans?
Well, first, Bialosky Cleveland is assisting us with the renovation of the EPL at East 185th location. So they have been instrumental in helping us to figure out this piece of the move plan for us. But yes, we will be moving. I would say to the public, they can expect to see just a smaller version of our main library. So they'll still be able to check out books and movies and music, use computers, interact with staff. They'll be able to participate in programs down at the Shore Cultural Center. Because unfortunately the EPL at East 185th Street building is not the same size as our current location. So we're going to have to reduce some of our collection and programs and services, but patrons should still recognize us.
This has been a fascinating process for us. It's not uncommon for libraries to either relocate to a temporary space, or sometimes when we're doing a renovation on a building, we'll phase it so that work is being done in one portion while staff or patrons are still in another portion of the building. But that really slows down the construction process and complicates it. So I think it's really smart of the library to move out into this temporary space. But we recognize it's going to be a little rough. You're coming from a library that's sized appropriately for you, and you're going to be squeezing into a much smaller space, and you're going to be serving your patrons out of a smaller space. So it is going to kind of be camping out for a year, but I think we'll make a really functional, concise little temporary library for you that'll keep providing all of those services that you just mentioned.
And it will absolutely pay dividends in the end, in a year when you walk into a completely renovated and reimagined Euclid Public Library. Still going to look familiar from the outside, but as Kacie said, everything inside will be new and updated and kind of providing new services.
12 years ago, we did our last renovation, and at that time, we stayed in the library and cordoned off certain areas. People might be thinking, why can't you do that again? Well, one, I think it's much more extensive this time, and two, that didn't really work out all that well for us. I think, Kacie, is that pretty much the reasons why we got to do what we're going to do?
Absolutely, Mike. It is horrible living and working during a renovation. It is not a fun environment for anyone, the public or the staff. So this will hopefully allow us to get the project done quickly and still provide library service.
And this location will be totally closed off. It's a construction site, fence around it, right?
Yes, that's correct. No public access. That is correct.
And where can people go to learn more about the relocation and the renovation?
So, of course, our website, euclidlibrary.org/renovation. I also encourage Euclid residents to please visit us. We have brochures and other information that we can share with members of the community. You can also go on to our Facebook page. We've recorded 2 renovation town hall meetings that are available if you want more details about the project.
And as of this recording, we don't have an exact timeline of when all this, well, it's really already started, but as far as how it will affect the patrons and the move and all that, we don't really have a timeline of exactly when that's all going to start?
Not yet, but we're getting closer. We are all looking forward to this project successfully concluding as of January 2026. And we are all looking forward to just letting the public see all of our hard work during this year. So we do encourage you all to, stay tuned, keep checking in with the Euclid Public Library, and we'll be sharing more details as soon as we can.
And we really hope that the Euclid community is excited about this as we are when they walk into this building. I know that you guys do have a lovely building as it is. It is just beginning to age out, or it is aging out. It's not beginning, it's there. We wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't. And I think that a lot of people they get used to what they have and they're comfortable with that and they think that's great. But what we've run into in other places where we've gotten the opportunity to do this is we have people walk back in when the library's done. They're like, I didn't realize it could be this. And that's the reaction we want Euclid to have, is to walk in and say, oh, I get to have this library, and just be excited when they walk in and realize that this is something their community has. And it's such a great asset. And it's going to allow, honestly, staff to be able to provide the services you guys already do and do it better, and have it be easier for the staff to be able to do that, because there's so much that the public doesn't know. Library staff are kind of bootstrapping to make these things happen, that they don't have the infrastructure in place for it. And renovations like this, oftentimes what's happening in the background besides those systems renovations is also creating spaces that allow the library staff to do what they're already doing, but to do it better. And those are the kinds of things that we hope people experience when it opens up and in.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. That was Ben Crabtree and John Guzik from Bialosky, Cleveland, and EPL Director Kacie Armstrong, who is as good of a podcast guest as she was a co-host. Thank you all for joining us.
All right. Thanks so much for having us.
Been our pleasure.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Jean.
Thank you. This is all so exciting.
Now it's time for the library news you cannot use.
Remember, do not try to use this news in any other situation, because it will result in a giant failure. Jean, I haven't heard it here, but teen librarian Jen DeLuke has heard it plenty at the Brecksville branch of Cuyahoga County Public Library. She was quoted in an ideastream.org article as saying that all day long she hears the word Ohio used as a put down. It's kind of a new way of calling something or someone lame. Lest you think it's just an Ohio thing of calling someone Ohio instead of lame, a 10-year-old in England does the same thing. Walter Prendergast was visiting with his Cleveland native mother recently and said his schoolmates warned him that Ohio is cursed and messed up. Now that we're hip and cool and know the new slang, I'm sure it will change.
Wow, my UK friends call me Ohio all the time.
Uh-oh.
I thought it was because I lived here.
It's definitely not because you're lame.
Oh, no.
That's not why. Sure.
Well, I wouldn't call an Indiana library Ohio, but if you want to see some really strange library items, go to the Indiana State Library in Indianapolis. According to newsandtribune.com, the library stores some unique items in a very secure room it calls the Cage. There's a book published in Europe in 1520 called The Book of Hours, which is illuminated with gold leafing and hand-drawn designs while listing hourly prayers for the Virgin Mary. They also hold the only existing copy of the Treaty of St. Mary's, signed between the U.S. government and the Miami tribe and other territorial leaders in 1818. There's a letter from Susan B. Anthony to Hoosier suffragists and historic photos from every county in the state. The library will celebrate its bicentennial in 2025.
Thanks, Jean, and that's the library news you cannot use.
Thanks for listening to Checked Out. You can learn more about Euclid Public Library by stopping by or going to our website, euclidlibrary.org.